All right, podcast number 35 with my friend Luba LOMONOSOVA. We're gonna talk about all things running. It's gonna be awesome. All right. Luba, thank you so much for being on the show. We're live, by the way. We're live.
Wow,
Luba.
that's so exciting. I'm really excited to be here, and this is my very first ever podcast.
All right, awesome. So this is great because when you win a big major marathon, or when you go to the Olympics, I'll be able to say, hey, Luba was here at the podcast first. Huh? How about that?
That sounds awesome.
I'm just like we were just talking about traffic, man. Like, it's so much traffic. I barely made it. I think you also had some issues with traffic today. So it's never fun to drive from outside of Boulder, I guess, into Boulder. But I'm glad that we're here.
Yeah.
We're sitting, and we're going to talk about your amazing journey into, like, I don't know, discovering running as a big part of your life, how it has changed you, I would just say, has helped you to become an amazing runner and now a coach. So this is exciting. Are you excited?
I am super excited.
Awesome. So, okay. But first of all, I want to say we're going to talk about, like I said, all things running and training. But you and your husband, Alex, been living in Colorado for the summer, right? You came here to train. How's that been so far? How's been summer in Colorado? Tell me a little bit about that.
It's so much better than in Austin, Texas. And we literally ran away from the heat.
Yeah.
And we thought that if we want to achieve the best goals, that's the place to be.
Yeah.
And we would like to do everything possible to reach all the heights that we can in running.
Right. So you came here to training altitude. Was that an advice from your current coach, Brett Hudson, or what made you think about training in altitude as part of your what motivated you to come here?
So last summer, we had a trip with my husband and my mom for several days to Colorado.
Okay.
And we stopped by in Boulder because my husband Alex is super obsessed with running and
Cool.
Ironmans. He dreams about doing Ironman one day. And then he heard about Boulder, that Boulder is a mecca for all the runners and triathletes. And it's super cool and beautiful and mountains. And we decided to stop by this town, and we really liked it. We had a little run, and it was so beautiful, and everyone was running, and the weather was cooler and nice. And we heard about benefits of altitude training. And later, when we came back to Austin, Alex had this crazy idea, like, what if we go to train on and live for a little bit longer in Boulder than just a couple days, just see how it is, and like get benefits of training in altitude, and then you race and see what happens. And last year we did so and really liked it here. So then this year Alex had this idea again. He was like, okay, if you want to become better runner, you might as well try to do everything possible to get better.
Right.
So it's hard to train in Austin in humidity and heat. And so I called Brad and asked, like, what would be the best time frame where to come and how long I have to stay on the altitude. And so I had a little conversation with him about that. And so he advised to come for 6-7 weeks, I think, and 2-3 weeks out from the marathon. So that's how we planned our trip.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I remember. What were your first impressions? Just tell me a little bit about, like, your first days in Colorado or Boulder. I mean, how was it overall? Do you like it? How was running? Especially in altitude. Was it hard or was not too hard?
So last year when we had this little trip and we went for a run, we went to Boulder Canyon.
Okay.
And I remember, like, today how I was running and smiling to all the people, and I saw all the runners, and it was a sunny day. I think it was something about 70 degrees or 68 or something, and it felt so good and nice. And we were just a couple days on the altitude, and altitude is not right away has an effect on you. So it
right
felt
away.
pretty comfortable, but also like going uphill towards the Boulder Canyon didn't feel as bad, even though I hate hills, just because it's so beautiful. I was so impressed with the beauty of this canyon and nature, and I was like, okay, I want to be here.
Yeah. No, I hear. Yeah, that's you're right. The views are impressive, but then you're right. At the beginning, you don't necessarily feel the altitude right away, I guess. But then, little by little. And have you seen like the effects of training in altitude, going back to Texas or going somewhere else? Running at lower elevations. I mean, have you seen like how running in altitude can help you run faster? Like, I remember one time I went to visit my brother in Seattle, and I went on a run, and I was running at my pace was like 1 minute per mile faster than I would usually go, and it didn't feel like that. And I was just because I think I was running sea level, so that was kind of cool. Like the benefits of altitude training, I guess.
Yes, I think so. If you spend just a couple days on the altitude and go back to sea level, I don't think that you will have any effect on it. But if you spend some time, like anywhere from like, let's say 4 to 6 to 8 weeks, you definitely will have some benefits. So I remember when I came back last year after being here in Boulder to Austin, and it felt so easy to run. I mean, like usually I would run like a 39-minute mile, and then once I had a training cycle and I came back to Austin, I was running like 7:45, 8-minute mile, kind of like easy-ish, and it felt really good.
Right.
And I mean, like also I did have some interesting goals for my CIM race, and so I picked the boldest goal I had, and I did it, and it felt pretty comfortable.
Right. We're gonna talk about CIM. The other day I was running over the weekend. I did a little race, and there's a moment when I was running with this other runner, and she was telling me that she was training for CIM. So definitely a very popular run. But before we talk about running, we'd love to learn more about you. Like where are you from? What brought you to the U.S.? Tell us more about who Luba is. And I would definitely need to know about your awesome hairstyle, the origin of that, because you have really cool hairstyle. So we'll talk about that later.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Okay, Luba, where are you from, Luba?
So I'm originally from Ukraine.
Okay.
And before coming to Ukraine, I lived about like 10 years in Kiev. That's the capital of Ukraine. So it is also, I'd like to distinguish two different persons. It's probably the one that was before weight loss and haircut and sports activity person, and the one now. Okay. So it's like two different people. I don't know, like honestly. So in
like
Ukraine,
an evolution.
Yes. So in Ukraine, I was like office manager. So I had an office job for like about 8 or 10 years, and it was okay. But then I was not super active, and I couldn't stick to any sports activity for a while. So let's say I did participate some classes of karate, and I lasted twice for just a little bit, few months. Then I went to some salsa classes.
Nice.
Also like few months.
Yeah.
That's it. Aerobics, couple months. Gym, couple months. So I wasn't consistent in anything. So I kind of like when I started different things, and I just left them. Yeah. And so also like in Ukraine, I was not super active. So when my husband had the opportunity to come to Austin, Texas, so we moved here, and we also kind of like just got married that year. Cool. And we had a honeymoon in Sri Lanka. So we got to eat a lot. And also like when we came to US, we were so excited about variety of food.
Oh my God, yeah, all the good food.
Yeah, and we wanted to try all of it.
Yeah.
And of course, like we didn't have a car in Ukraine, but we got a car here in US because it's so hard to not have a car.
Interesting. So in Kiev, is it common not necessarily to have a car? Do people walk or ride their bikes more than, because here, especially in Texas, you have to have a car, right? Texas is so big. But so you didn't have a car?
No.
Okay.
So to be honest, I just got my driver license just before coming to US.
Okay.
So, and I learned how to drive here.
Got it.
So yeah, people use more public transportation like subway, some trolley buses or buses. Or just walk in.
Yep. Got it.
Yeah. So lack of movement in Austin, variety of food, it led to me like gaining lots of weight. And I got to the point where I don't like myself. I like all the beautiful apparel and clothes and those dresses, and they look good, but they just don't look good on me. And I don't have sizes that fits me the way I like them to fit me. So I was like, I gotta change myself. I'd like to love myself, So the first thing that I did probably was to change my hair. So at first I had pretty long hair, and then at first I just cut it like till shoulders, and that's probably where my transformation has started. And I started changing my food habits and started being super active, but I wouldn't start running because I hated it.
Talk more about those first changes that you were talking about. You started changing your food habits and started being more active even before you started running. What kind of changes did you do?
So I did go to school for healthy eating or classes or courses, and
in Texas,
in Kiev actually.
I see.
But I didn't implement that much. But
Theory.
I mean, like, I did have some knowledge. I knew what I was supposed to do. It just was hard to stick to it,
Yeah.
So
why do you think it was hard to stick to it?
I think it's a lot about like food addictions. People love eating, and once you have like some addictions, it's so hard to make an effort and like stay more consistent without doing something and changing those. And I mean, like, people drink.
Yeah.
So drinking is a big part. Like, for example, I've been doing healthy eating for 5 days a week, and then weekend you would drink a beer or something like this. And if you drink, then your hunger gets more.
Totally. I've been there so many times. Oh, yeah. You want to eat everything.
Yeah. So then what you lost during the week, you will gain during the weekend, and you are just not moving anywhere.
Yeah, it's hard to make changes. I completely hear you. Like the whole drinking. I love drinking beer. I now kind of stopped. And with my wife, we made a little commitment that we're not gonna drink. And maybe we're celebrating our wedding anniversary in like 2 weeks, and maybe we feel like it. We'll have some. We love craft beer anyway, but we're starting to feel really good. Like one of the things that I've noticed after not drinking is like, okay, you lose some weight, but also I feel more focused. And actually, we were just talking about this before the conversation. I had a little race this weekend, and I felt good. I was like, oh, I feel focused and happy, and lost some weight. So, yeah, those habits. I hear you. Okay. So some changes, okay, but keep going. This is really good.
So you started talking about drinking. So also I quit drinking completely right now for about, I don't remember exactly, probably 1.5, maybe 2 years, maybe less, kind of like this. But this is you are so right. You are more focused, and I mean, like, also like people are all about addictions, and you gotta have like some addictions, right? So if you get rid of one, you gotta have another one.
Interesting. Yeah, that's so okay. Got it. That you have to, and I think I know where you're going with this. The running is your addiction.
Yeah, that's probably it.
So you're redirecting your addictions towards something that's better for you.
Yeah, but I guess it just happened naturally.
Right. Yeah, I hear you. Okay, so so you started eating healthier.
Yes.
Talk about how, because you I remember you said that you just hated running. You didn't like
I
running.
did.
And is it true that Alex, your husband, kind of introduced you to running?
Yes.
How was that?
So, like from school, I had a really bad experience, and in Ukraine, we don't have really good physical education classes, and you just gotta like from time to time do some normatives, and nobody like really teaches you what you have to do, what you're supposed to do. So it's gonna like, okay, today we run. You go run, and then you have this side stitch, whatever, all that uncomfortable feeling, and you like hate it. You're out of breath, and you think that you are a loser.
Yeah.
So that's what I remember from running. Everything about running.
So okay, get it. They didn't necessarily help you see what was the big picture or the main goal of why you're doing what.
Yes.
The things that you're doing.
Yes. So I mean, like I was always fine with doing like some sprints, like I don't know, 50 meters, 100 meters, but I was bad in doing like longer distance, like 1K, 2K, or something like this. So I walked all of those.
Yeah.
So, and then later when I was at university, I had several attempts that I wanted to start running, but I failed all of them. And it's like never worked for me, so I quit trying.
Yeah.
And then once we started being together with Alex, from time to time, he also had a problem with the weight, so he wanted to start become active. And I mean, like he still has this dream about doing Ironman.
Go
so
Alex! Ironman Texas. When is that? April or just? There's a lot of good races in Texas.
Yeah.
I mean, no more Ironman Boulder, but but yeah, awesome. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, we just need to learn how to swim.
But yeah, I mean, all kinds of options. Okay, so
Yeah, so he started like running, and I was like, okay, you run, I'm not doing that. Like I can do gym, I can do weightlifting, I can do whatever, some other classes in the gym, but no running, please. So, and again, I don't know, it was some ordinary day where we were supposed to go to the gym, and he was like, okay, let's just try to go run like a mile to the gym or something. And so we went together, and I was like, oh, I can't. He was like, no, you see, you're doing like so huge steps and you're trying so hard. You don't have to do that so hard. I mean, like, you are just starting. Nobody cares about your speed. I was like, okay, wait a minute. Why didn't I thought about it?
Yeah.
And I started. So the advice he gave me, he said that you should do little steps, like super short steps.
Yeah.
And then I did it, and that was like breakthrough. Like, wow, I can do that.
Was that before you bought this training plan, this 8-week training plan where
Yes.
you? Okay, so that was before, because
That was before.
You mentioned before that you I think this was like you bought an 8-week training plan where you had very small goals week after week, and you achieved those goals, and you were able to run longer than you thought you could at the end of those 8 weeks, which was really cool. But I think the main thing about that program was like you just need to be patient and focus on smaller goals to get to a bigger goal, right?
That's true.
Yeah, right.
Yes. So after that run, I decided like to buy a shoe. Like running shoe, just because Alex did buy running shoes in Texas Running Company.
Yeah.
So we went to a Texas Running Company, and they picked a shoe for me, which was a really great idea. So I started running like right and safe,
For sure.
And later I started working in Texas Running Company, which was funny.
So they're also part of Jackrabbit?
Yes.
Okay, who also own... which, by the way, little side note comment, I met Luba, when was it, last year?
Last year.
Yeah, when we... I was working at the Boulder Running Company. Yeah, you paid a visit to us, and you worked with us for... How long were you at the Boulder Running Company?
I would think it was like about 6 or 7 weeks, something like that.
Yeah, it was fun. That was fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got a good pair of shoes,
Yes.
and then...
And I was like, I'm investing like $120 to a pair of shoes. It's better be worth it. I have to do something. I mean, like, otherwise it's kind of like wasting of money.
Yeah, totally.
Right?
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. And back at the time, my husband bought a HR strap for him.
Uh-huh.
It was the Who, that brand. And on their website, they had several training plans for free.
Cool.
And it was like so simple, like for beginners,
Mm-hmm.
and it was called Burn.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay. And then it was like super slow, like 20 minutes a day,
Right.
3 times a week. And then you gradually add 2-3 minutes. And by the end of, I think, 8 weeks, you'll be able to run 40 minutes.
Was that to run a specific time, like 40 minutes, or was that to help you train for 5K or
No,
10K?
that was
Okay.
just about like to reach 40 minutes, no matter how fast I was. So also like my pace back then was 13-14 minutes mile.
Right.
That was that ridiculous, but I didn't care about that.
Yeah.
The goal was to learn how to run and add it to my add a cardio to my training
Right.
routine.
And then after that, you start thinking and focusing on goals. Like, okay, now I want to run 10K, half marathon, a marathon. So I'm just curious to learn, because you, like you said before, you didn't like it, you hated it, it was boring, and then you start thinking about goals. What made you like start liking running, if I can say it? Was it that you enjoyed the whole process of setting goals and getting to those goals, or was it being outside, or you know what I'm saying? What was it that started making you think, oh, I kind of like this thing?
Yeah, so actually it was kind of like when I reached those 40 minutes was that breakthrough, like, oh, wow, I can do that. And within those 40 minutes, I was able to run a little bit over 5K.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, what if I could run it faster? So I picked another plan for 8 weeks to improve the speed, which had just one speed workout per week. And that was already a struggle. But I mean, like, I like that idea that I can do something that I always thought I was not capable of doing.
Have you always been like that in general, or did that just start with running? Have you always been driven like that you pick up things that you think you can't and then you work towards those goals?
No, I think that's actually the first thing ever that had that kind of influence on me. And also, like, I started enjoying it because it was not painful. So it's kind of like I was running, it was not hurtful because I was going slow. So it's kind of like I trying to learn how to enjoy it and do it, you know, because like I wouldn't do it if it was really bad for me. I mean, like right now I know how to tolerate some kind of pain, but it is like because of the goals I want to reach. But back then it was all about pleasure and making it comfortable experience. So for like, let's say first 2 weeks it maybe was not that comfortable, but I got to the point where I started enjoying it.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, and then I improved my speed, and then I met those guys from Spain.
Oh, I see.
So they lived in the same community we are, and I said like, oh, I ran like 7 kilometers, and they were like, okay, if you ran 7 kilometers, you probably are capable of running 10 kilometers. I was like, oh no, 10 kilometers is such a huge distance. I don't think I will be able to do that. And I don't know, they just put that belief into me that I can do that. And I was like, okay, wait a minute. Maybe I can pick a training plan and train for Captain K in Austin.
Okay.
And it took me like about 4 or 5 months. And back then I used Endomondo training plan.
Okay. What?
Endomondo.
Okay.
So there is a program like Strava.
Oh,
but
I see.
I think it's owned by Under Armour.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
And it's kind of like $5 a month. And they make for you a training plan.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So that's what my initial plan.
Yep.
That I stick to.
Yep.
And then when I finished 10K, Captain K, I was like, okay, what if I can do half marathon? And I mean, like, also Alex said like, okay, let's do half marathon. And then we signed up for this Santa Rosa half marathon. And also we thought like, okay, that's kind of cool. We can run and travel.
So Santa Rosa is in Texas?
No, Santa Rosa is
California.
California.
Of course.
And then we had that big trip in California, and it was so memorable.
And then you just keep doing these races, and you keep increasing the distance. Then you decide to do your first marathon. So how was that? Like, how was like the training process? Training for a half marathon to doubling the distance, like, and how was that experience of running your first 42 kilometer, your first marathon?
Yeah. So I mean, like, I at the time I just picked the training plan, and I was like, okay, I have a training plan, I gotta trust it. So I mean, like they know what they're doing. So I'm pretty sure I'll be able to do that. But also, like I did have some break, like for 2 or 3 weeks where I couldn't run while training for my first marathon. I had to have a surgery, and I was not allowed to run for some time. But then it's kind of like, it took me about months to get back, but I actually picked it up and I did pretty good. I mean, like I ran 4 hours, 4 minutes for my first marathon, and the weather conditions were not good. So if the weather conditions were good, I'm pretty sure I would be able to run 4-hour marathon. But also, like people say, like you don't have to have a goal for your first marathon.
Just finish it. Huh?
Yes, but
Were you like that, or were you thinking?
I wanted a goal. I wanted a goal. Yes.
You see, it's interesting because I'm more like the first distance that I do for a particular event. I'm more like I just want to finish it. Like when I finished my first Ironman, I just wanted to finish alive, you know. But I personally been working on being more aggressive or more specific about my goals. It's this idea of believing more in yourself. Like, you know, you see why other people, like for instance, qualifying for Boston. I've never really thought about it seriously because I've never really stopped and told myself, what if I decide to train for it, you know? Sometimes I would tell myself, I'm too slow. I cannot, because I look at the timing, you know, times to qualify, and I'm like, I cannot hit that pace at all. But I think it's a matter of, like you were saying, like setting goals and starting to believe more in yourself. You can tell yourself, you know, if you have a goal, just work, do your best to try to get there. And that's one of the things I find so impressive about your journey, your running journey, is like, because when you finish your first marathon, you then decide, okay, I want to qualify for Boston. That's a big goal.
Yes.
Right?
But also, like, I didn't fully believe I could achieve it. I was like, I'm setting that goal for, so I looked like when should I apply for Boston, and so I did some research what my time's supposed to be, and I was like, okay, in 2019 I have to, like, I want to run, and I put it just on my calendar, kind of like in notes, in plans. In 2017, after finishing that marathon, I mean, like 4-hour marathon, and I had to be like 3:30. So in a year.
So wait, after you finished that marathon, you said, okay, in 2 years, I want to qualify for Boston.
In 2 years, I want to run Boston.
Boston.
So then there is like,
I
have to like in a year qualify for that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So you set that goal, and talk about training for that marathon, which was, what was the?
Mesa Phoenix.
Yeah. Which you ended up doing it in 3 hours and 27 minutes,
Yes.
46 seconds.
Even faster than I set a goal to.
And you just self-coached. I mean, how was that? Like, what kind of training plan did you pick? And how was that experience of, and why did you choose that marathon to try to qualify?
So, I mean, like in research, you go to some website where say like Boston qualifiers, and I looked at the percentages of how many people get qualified.
Yeah.
And what is the elevation on the course? What is the weather like? So I like cooler weather. So, and that race looked pretty good. And also, I think also, rep from Hoka, she told me about that race.
Oh, I see.
So that's why I specifically looked at that race.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think her name is Melissa. Yeah. So once I decided, I was like, okay, what should I do? I thought that in order to become faster in marathon distance, I have to run faster 10K, half marathon, and then I should be faster in general. So I trained for I think 4 or 5 weeks for Captain K, which was not a lot, but still I improved my time in 10K, and then I was like, okay, now we have to run another half marathon, because also like during summertime it's so hard to train in Austin. So we did half marathon in DC. And then we bought this Mesa Phoenix and started training for it. And I wouldn't say I had pretty strong training cycle, but also like my focus was also on going to the gym 5 days a week.
Yeah, wow.
So I read somewhere in the internet that if you kind of like do weightlifting 5 days a week, and like you have focus on your legs as well, you kind of like getting yourself to the point where your body learning how to recover when you completely destroying it. So once you are experiencing marathon distance, it is not that hard. So your body knows how to deal with that. So I went to the gym 5 times a week, and
so you're basically getting stronger.
Yes.
Like,
yes,
okay.
but also you have to be very careful with that, not to overtrain yourself.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I was doing everything 100% right back then, but I mean, like, it worked pretty well for me because I finished that race at 3 hours 27 minutes.
Boom.
Yes. And that was like
amazing.
So that was like probably one of the best marathon ever, because after 13 miles I felt pretty good, and actually on the second part I speeded up, and I was able to run last mile at 7 minutes 16 seconds pace, which was insanely fast back at the time.
Yeah, and what I was gonna say is, so before you do this race, you go to the gym, start getting stronger, and you also train for this smaller distance races, right? For 10Ks, a half
yes,
marathon.
That's what I did.
So in those races, you were hitting the paces that you needed to hit to be able to qualify for Boston. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
Okay.
No, and not necessarily. I was focused on becoming faster than I was like
before.
Last year
yeah,
at the same distance or like relevantly nearest time.
So it's not like, for instance, to qualify for the Boston Marathon, you needed to run, I'm just going to make a number, 7 minutes, 30 seconds per mile. It's not that you were running that pace.
No,
okay.
no. I was not doing that.
So you were not there yet. So
no, I was progressing. So the fastest I became probably was a couple months before racing it.
Man. So that was definitely a breakthrough moment for you.
Yes.
Yeah. And then, okay, so you finished that, you qualified for Boston, and what happens next? Did you start being coached? I think you mentioned that you met a coach, or was that
yes.
Okay.
Yes. So once I qualified for Boston, I decided that I may want to have someone's help. Just because, I mean, like, I'm pretty sure I can coach myself, but what if I can do better if I have someone from outside with more knowledge than I have and more experience? And I met this coach from Ukraine. Her name is Irina. She's a former Olympic team coach for track and field in Ukraine. Cool. So that sounded really good for me, and I was so impressed that she agreed to work with me. And I learned a lot from her. So she introduced me to real track workouts, because before that, I don't think I ever stepped to the track or something, you know. And also I didn't have, like, we don't have like track workouts in Ukraine, so I didn't know what was that. So she introduced me to all of those workouts and drills. It was pretty challenging for me. My body was really breaking down. It's kind of like I was sore for a while, and I was that sore like never before, and I couldn't even think that I could be that sore after like running workouts. So that was like a bit tough on me. And then I was facing like it was like about summertime then later, and summertime is always tough in Texas. So also I did some traveling during the summer, and I picked probably a wrong race. So in August I was training for marathon in Utah. And it was on elevation.
Oh, wow.
So it was starting at 9,000 and dropping to 4 or 5.
Oh, wow.
But it was like the first part was like pretty intense rolling hills. And then it was straight down. And I came about like 4 or 5 days in advance. And that's where altitude sickness and adjustment hits you. So I think I did like everything possible wrong for that race. But I was able to finish it. That was a big win just to finish that race.
Right.
But I learned a lot from it.
Mm.
So, and then I took some time off, and then we came to Boulder.
Mm-hmm.
And I got sick.
Oh.
And then I left out with the 8 weeks of training before CIM.
Wow. So no training for 8 weeks?
No. It's 8 weeks that left till the race.
Got it. Okay.
Yes. So, and that's what is minimum required for you to get
marathon training.
Yeah, but also like you're supposed to have some days before.
Yeah,
like
for
I
sure.
don't think like every person can do that. I mean, like I had some background and fitness, so I was able like to do something, and I decided also like to go by myself and train myself and just see how it goes, go by my feel. I did several fartleks, some speed workouts, but not a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I was focusing on like increasing my mileage, and I hit that about 65 miles per week. And then I came back to Austin for a couple weeks, and then I had a really good race. I had a huge PR. I finished CIM at 3 hours 14 minutes.
Wow, that's amazing. How is that? CIM was 3 hours and 14 minutes from 3:27 to 3:14.
Yes.
And how is the course of CIM compared to the Mesa Phoenix Marathon? What would you say was it about the same? Are they relatively flat, or which one would you say was more challenging?
I think CIM is slightly more challenging just because I like downhills a bit more.
Oh,
so
okay.
I would think, I don't know, it just Mesa Phoenix felt so great and fast for me, but also like the weather was slightly cooler, and also I was not going as fast, and maybe it was not like my all out,
Yeah.
But then the CIM was a little bit more challenging, but I hit like even split for every 5K, which was really funny.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a real structure for that race, so I just started running with the 320 pacers, and I picked it up later. I just felt I was faster, and I met also. So I also know that some rock runners from Austin. I didn't know them, but I just thought that okay, if those guys running, they're supposed to have a plan, because I know they have pretty solid training, and they do race simulations and all that stuff. And I was like, okay, let me just follow them for a while. And I was just kind of like paced by them,
It's so awesome that you say that. You reminded me of is this idea of following somebody. You don't necessarily know what you're doing, but when you follow somebody, you push yourself, right? Like last weekend, I was doing my little race. There's a moment that I was right behind this group of people who were going faster than me, and I was just telling myself, okay, they're going really fast for me right now, but let's stay a little bit longer. And that really helps you to kind of get going, right? Yeah.
I mean, like that's a little tricky. I mean, like that worked at that race because I felt good. But when you don't feel good, you can't keep it up. So that's when I started training with rock running. That's what I found out, that I'm not really good in running with people.
Oh, okay.
I do enjoy running with people.
Yeah.
I like having conversation, and it's so much fun. I met so many friends while training with rock running, but I felt like, so at the point where I'm trying to have the pace that people are going, and then it's too fast for me, and then I can't do that, and then I feel bad about myself. So
do you find that you push yourself more when you are, let's say in a race, when you're running by yourself, or when you compete with other people, when you have people next to you? Because I think for me, it's more like when I have people around me that I'm like, ooh, I want to follow you, or maybe want to try to pass you. It kind of motivates me, but I'm still learning that about myself. So you do better when you're by yourself.
I think I'm doing better when I'm doing it by myself.
Okay.
But I could use people as the guidance of like where I am at. So if I feel good, slightly pushing, it's okay, but then you need to find the limit,
Yeah.
like the balance,
Right.
where you are not pushing too hard, because if you're going too hard, you can mess the whole thing for yourself.
Right. You need to find that.
And that's bringing me to the point where I started being coached by Brad.
Talk
And
about that.
I learned a lot how to be more patient. So let me tell you like how I ended up trained by Brad. So when I worked at Boulder Running Company,
Brad Hudson, by the way, running coach.
I met Sid Vaughn, and he told me that his coach is Brad Hudson, and we had this little black book in the Boulder Running Company. And I was like, okay, so Sid is pretty fast runner. I wonder like what his coach like, and I just Googled him, and I saw that he has another book. And that book called Run Faster from 5K to Marathon. I was like, okay, that sounds great. I want to read that book. And actually, when I was reading that book, it was really clear language, and lots of things were so kind of like goes aligned with everything I believe in. And also like I remember, so the quote from the book, not exact, but the idea is do what works for you, even though it means you are doing something different. So I really like that from that book. And I was like, okay, that would have been nice that that Brad would be my coach, but I mean, like, who am I and who is he?
Of course.
And okay, so then I went to train with Rogue Running, and then later, after Boston, I know that Brad came to Austin.
He went to Austin.
I've been following him for a while on Instagram, and somehow we connected, and I was like, it was one day, then I was like, okay, like after Boston, I may want to like change something. I don't think like running with people worked for me. So I either go coach myself or I find another coach. And I was like, that seemed pretty risky and bold, like just to, so I decided to write text to Brad.
Hey, Brad, coach me.
And I was like, Brad, do you take athletes? And he was like, I charge. That was like really fun moment. I was like, okay. Okay. And I think from May we started working together.
May of this year.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yes, and so what I also liked, I told him all my bold goals, and he didn't say anything about it, which was good. I mean, like, I have a coach, and he just do everything he can to make all possible that I would reach my goals. So that's what I liked. So also like he understand that in Austin it's so hard to be training.
Right.
And we've been using lots of training by heart rate, which is very beneficial. So I don't feel about myself that I'm not hitting certain paces. It's just like my goal to be focused on my heart rate.
Oh, I see.
So, and also
okay.
Yeah. And while you focusing on the heart rate, he gave me several very interesting workouts that really taught me a lot how to, because usually I would come to the track, I want to hit certain pace, I mess it up, no good workout. I feel bad. Nothing gained.
Right.
And then so there were some workouts on threshold that kind of like was focused on like hitting certain heart rate, and then in the 5 minutes increasing it again and again, and that's how I learned how to be patient.
That's what I was gonna say. That word patience, huh?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes, and then now I feel so much better.
Now, what other things do you feel you've learned from Brad? We were talking about the whole mental aspect. Do you think that you've that Brad has helped you with that as well, with mental strength and
Yes, I do really like that Brad has this. So I've been following his Instagram for a while, and I've been reading his post, and he talks about mental fitness, and I found in myself that I fell apart on the mental strengths the most on my Boston Marathon. So because like, I don't know, for some reason I decided that I want to change my goals. My mind play tricks with me, but we need to learn how to manage and how to make our mind stronger. And I'm a strong believer that it works. So he did recommend me several books to read.
Yeah, he's so good at that.
Yeah, so there is a really amazing book. It calls Train Your Mind for Athletic Success. And actually, Brad told me that he reads this book like every day.
Yeah.
He read it already for 7 times or something.
Okay, you said that already, so I'm gonna look at it because I'm also, I love reading books about that kind of topic, and like I was telling you before we started this conversation, which is I feel I want to start improving my mental strength, because it's this idea of believing in yourself more and more, like, yeah, I can really, get to these goals. And so, what was I going to say about Brad? So mental strength.
Yeah, so he also incorporates in his training style mental fitness. So he literally, in my schedule, I see a couple times a week mental fitness.
It's like a visualization?
Yes. So it's kind of like my task is to watch some good runners like finishing successful races and then to visualize me being successful.
Yeah, it's like what he said on the podcast that we recorded 2 weeks ago. That podcast was awesome. Like, I
really loved it.
There were a couple of things that I used in my race last weekend. One was to be in the moment, because there's moments when you start panicking. I'm gonna quit, I'm feeling tired, and then you just start focusing on the moment and like, okay, just breathe in, breathe out, just do your thing. And the other thing was differentiation between pain and discomfort.
Yes.
There's a moment where I almost stopped, and then I told myself, okay, am I really in physical pain? Like, I would just tell myself, I don't even have a blister, so I should be really happy that right now it's just that my legs are hurting a little, my quads are hurting a little, but it's the discomfort. It's not. So that really helped me to keep pushing. Like, so yeah, that mental aspect is pretty interesting. It's so powerful. And yeah, it's like this idea of, the more you read or the more you train with people like Brad, or surround yourself with people that can help you to keep growing. Like,
yeah. And also, like, in this book, Train Your Mind for Athletic Success, I just read recently that breathing is a big helpful tool. So it's kind of like you can make yourself more aggressive with the breathing. And also, like, when you are in those moments when your heart rate is high, when you feel hard, you need to try and slow down your breath, and kind of like you trick your mind.
Oh, cool.
So it's kind of like cooling down.
So
So it's kind of like and staying in the moment. I mean, like, also, if you like, let's say messed up 1 mile.
Yeah.
You just, okay, this mile not going well, just finish it, stop pushing it. I mean, like, just hang in there, and then, okay, there is another mile, there is another opportunity. And that's how you can pick it up.
Yeah, so true. I remember Brad saying something like, what do I need to do to, while training or racing, what do I need to do right now to help me get back on track, to hit those goals? So yeah, it's really cool. Now, Luba, you what other goals do you have, or do you have any other races planned for the rest of the year, and what other goals do you have?
So I'm training for Chicago Marathon.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So which is in about little over 4 weeks.
Yeah, October, right?
Yes. I'm very excited for that race. I had a pretty rough summer where my performance really decreased, but I became more mentally strong. And also, like, coming here to altitude and training here, I'm doing pretty good. And I have a good chances of having a really good results.
I love that. Now, before we wrap up this conversation, like, what advice do you have for people who are listening to the show and they would like to, I don't know, or start running or take the running to the next level? And sometimes, we just don't believe in ourselves. We feel like, oh, I can't do it. Or like you were saying, I hate running, I hate doing this. Like, what would you advise them to do to, start doing?
Yeah, so at first, I mean, like, they need to set a goal. and they need to stick to the training plan. That's the easiest part. And don't rush the moment. It's like you need to be patient. Patience is everything. I mean, like when you do a little bit, like everything so slow, patiently, eventually you will get results, because nothing big comes from something fast, right? So
it takes time, right?
Yes. I mean, like, of course, it's better to work with a coach. But if you can't afford it, just Google some training plans. But just don't do anything randomly. That might hurt you.
Yeah, of course. That makes sense. Now, by the way, you're talking about coaching. You're a coach.
Yes.
And why don't you tell more about your services and who, people that you coach, and where can they find you online and social media? Which, by the way, you have to follow her on Instagram. She's really cool. Really cool account. How can people find you online?
I do have a website, which usually is in my Instagram.
And we'll put the links in the website.
So I have website. I have a little blog. I have to be more often writing there some advice for people. But I do have a pretty strong Instagram where I share my experience and some advice for people. So I do coach people. So what is specific and special about me as a coach? I coach people who maybe are not even runners. So, and I teach how to love running. Not just like to get some results, but start enjoying it. And I have very many already successful stories where people were not thinking about running at all, and now they are coached by me, and they're texting me that, oh, thank you so much. You made running so joyful. We didn't know that running can be so joyful. So, and people are setting goals, and recently I had a message from my athlete, and she just started like about a month or two ago, and she was like, what if I start training for half marathon in March and marathon in April? I was like, that's a pretty cool goal. It's hard, but I can get you there.
Cool.
And you just need to stick to the plan, and just like, and to every person I have a different approach. And because there is no way that one way working for different people.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I love your story. I love following you on Instagram. And it's always motivating to see your stories, and how this amazing progress you've had, like the fact that you just started running, and then a year later or so just qualify for these big races, and I love that you have this big goal. Like, I love the story that you wrote where you say, see you at the Olympics. And
I'm just so I would like to become the best possible version of myself. And the problem with so many people that we are limiting ourselves.
That's true.
It just kind of like we think that we can do something. Okay, I started running at 31, and I already was told by people that it's too late to start running. But I believe that you have to explore, you get to try, and at the end you will just know that you gave it all, that you tried it at least.
That's true.
And it is not about goal that you will reach. It is of the person who you become on the way.
Yeah, that's true. It's like giving your best, to get to that goal. It's not. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That's
it's more interesting to have a goal, because like you wake up and you want to do everything to reach your goal, and also like the process, enjoying the process is very important.
Right.
That makes your life more interesting.
That's true. Awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show, Luba.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Look forward to keep following your adventures, and till the next time.
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you so much.